popped up. How do you feel black students are performing today in the Wakulla County school system? As parents, as educators, as people who work with the school system, how do you feel they are performing in the Wakulla schools?
I was just going to say, I think that as long as they're performing well on the football field, that they're performing well enough. I think that a lot of them are overlooked. I think if they don't shine on a field or on a court somewhere, they have a tendency to fall into the background. I know this. I've seen it firsthand, and I understand there are people that feel there's backlash if you speak up and say anything. But I think there could be, how can I say this? I'm just going to say it.
Say it, please.
When they look around and what they see is the ones that are on the football field and the ones that are on the basketball court are getting what they need, whether they're getting it or not, they're being put where they need to be put, and the ones that are struggling aren't. They notice it. I notice it. I'm sure other people notice it. It doesn't go unnoticed. Whether or not anything is done about it is something else. But also, it concerns me too that when they look around, they look to see what to strive for, and there's not a whole lot they can relate to. I say that I've got students that have, and I also say this because I taught at Bellevue for 5 years, and for those of you that don't realize it, I was the only white person in my classroom for a long time. So I got to see things from a different perspective for those 5 years. And so it made things a little different. I had not really experienced any of what I experienced when I came down to Wakulla County because I had been up there. That had been my experience. And so when I came down here, the ones that excelled on the field or on the court, that's where the attention was. The ones that struggled, I found they struggled. And along with that, I didn't see a lot of parental involvement, so that concerned me as well. I think parental involvement is very important regardless of what race you are and what class you're in. And I didn't see a lot of parental involvement, and I don't know why that is either.
Now, I know that you had something you wanted to say.
Well, she took it.
I'm sorry.
She took it to the sports area. Okay. I'm talking to the classroom and the academic achievement area. There are certain levels of, and I'm looking at the comparisons of the reading scores and the math scores, and they're pretty much within a 10-point range. They're pretty much equal within that particular part. And I'm talking about in the grade level. I'm talking about subject area. But when it comes down to understanding, I think it's dealing with the patience of people to come in and teach. And one thing about teaching is that you have to teach every child in the classroom. It doesn't matter if you have a high one comparing to a very low achieving student. You're going to have to know something that differentiates instruction, being able to separate and say, okay, I'm going to work with this, not say, okay, well, you go over in the corner and do a worksheet. Right. I'm not the worksheet person. I teach every child in my classroom. In observation, that could be a problem of just a workshop of understanding how to differentiate in the classroom. As a teacher, we have a responsibility for every single child. That's a large responsibility with let's play paper. Okay, I know nobody thinks really about paper, but our responsibility is to look at every child equally. Some you can say, hey, do this, and they'll do it. Some you have to really be stern on them, which comes into parental involvement to get the support at the home so that they can be successful academically. But the whole part is understanding the development of a child. If a child is not being provided for like the normal child, we say, unquote, the normals, we have to take that in consideration. they're not thinking about academics if they're having no food at the house. So it seems as though we are patient with some children on that place in that particular same situation, but not every child. So it's a more of fairness in the classroom and being able to see other minorities in that school setting. Okay, in a leadership role at the school setting. It's all about influences. I want to be like him when I grow up. In order for that to happen, then you're going to have have some type of person that they can look up to in order for that to take place. When I was in Wakulla, several of my students said I was the first black teacher they ever had. The first one. I said, well, okay. And it was a culture shock for me because I came out of South Florida. I didn't understand whether people still hunt. I did not. I'm city, but I didn't understand that. However, I did not make judgment calls against them. I knew how to adapt to that environment. And I think every teacher has to be flexible. That old way of thinking, you can't think that way. Because there is a test that students have to pass. It doesn't matter if there must be some type of academic achievement test that every child has to pass equally. Okay? When you go into the classroom, there's more fairness and a desire to see others who you can emulate. And that could be something dealing with the discrepancy of the test scores.
Going back to the performance, I was black student performing today in Wakulla County Public Library. And I'd like to piggyback off what the young lady to my right. She was saying that, with the athletic, and as far as, performance is like a twofold thing. It's like if your parents are involved, you can kind of monitor how your kids perform in the school. And if you're an athlete, they kind of, like she was saying, that they get special treatment, make sure are they getting the education to take them further after athletic. And what I'm seeing now is, they're getting put in these classes, and once they perform on the football field, it's beyond that. You can sign the scholarship, but then after you sign the scholarship, you're going off to college, and you're not performing in college. They're not getting. If you look at the athletes that, and I'm talking about the black athletes and the white athletes. If you look at the ones that perform in college, you see a whole lot different. It's a difference once they get in college, and you wonder how they made it through high school. And then you get, because you got college is a whole different thing. And they got to take remedial classes and all that does is, and it looks good that they got, that this person got a scholarship.
Now, is this just a myth, or is it a fact?
It's a fact.
I have something to say.
Yes.
I'm George Nelson, and I remember the school system way back before it was integrated. And I remember, I just looked out of the corner of my eye and I saw Miss Williams over there. Her husband was the principal. She got her into the school. And I believe it was in 68, 67, 68, when the school was about to be integrated. The state started a test to try and see what the school system would look like. They called it an administrative test. Every person that's going to administration was supposed to take that test. I remember this very fluently. Mr. Williams scored the highest in the state of Florida on that test. Yet, I want to break this open. It starts with the high of the school system. The school system is nothing but a sham. If you look back out and go from superintendent to superintendent, and it's sort of like the pyramid in Egypt and stuff. I stay in there till my child, I put this person in there. This is the way the system is. Stokely put in, Miller put in, Stokely put in Miller put in, Harris. This thing goes this way. Before Mr. William died, we started the Christian Coalition 7 years before most of you people remember. Mr. William and a group of us went to the school system. We asked, why didn't we have any black principals in Wakulla County? The school system said they didn't have any qualified blacks to learn. I'm looking at another fellow, he just moved back during this time. We went to the school system and Mr. Williams said, I tell you what, and Elder Gavin, he was there too, that what we would do, we would go out and you were the school board.
Yes, sir.
I want all of you that running for public office to listen to this because we've had so many lives told to us and we know it. We know that they're not. And Mr. Williams said, what we would do as a group, as a black group, we would go to these colleges and universities and we would talk with the dean, the president of the school, and we would get the names of those people that we know are qualified to be in that position. We would hand deliver you that list of people. You choose from that list, and everyone has come to us, and this has been their come to us to this day, that the next opening in the school are qualified black would be. And I took my children out of school because we had a meeting at the school down here, and Stokely was students in the building, and he said, you don't like the way the school smells, take your children out. I took them out.
Say that again? You said what?
If you don't like the way the school system is being run, just take them out.
Yeah.
I took mine out. A few years later, it is not because these kids can't learn, it's because of the way the structure is. And I'm old enough to know it, I'm old enough to tell you, and I'm old enough to stand up here and not be afraid to tell you that the system is flawed, the system is a racist system, and nothing's going to be done. Bill Whaler, when he got in office, I ran the school board in the year 1974. I reminded the man, he said, it doesn't matter who you elect as your school board member. It's all come down to the superintendent. But the school board member has. I've been in those rooms. I've had friends in those rooms, and I never talked to that girl already. You take a black application and throw it in the trash. But this is what happens. You have qualified blacks. We've been told, and we have sent our black kids to school to get all of these, get all everything that you've asked for. And you pass over our kids. Hire somebody that doesn't meet the qualifications that our kids already have and put them into this. And then you send them and they get a computer program certificate and you qualify them as the person. This is wrong. It is wrong. And this is what happened to our kids. They're not dumb kids. They were. And I tell you what, if the federal government start taking those dollars back from the school that they're getting for the black kids, you'll still different.
Here's a point of clarification that we made.
Yes, please.
And that is that in '64, you know, last month was 50 years that the Civil Rights Act was passed. You look at the school system in '64 and look at it in 2014. Look at the number of qualified minorities and African Americans over there. Now you look at between '74, when blacks really started going to college and integration really started moving into the system. Well, in Wakulla County, they've eased you out and allowed the system to become all white as far as administrators and school teachers. And the community, to a certain extent, has allowed that to happen. Because the bottom line is that you got two universities right up the street. And you're going to tell me that you can't find a qualified administrator that's able to go up there and talk with these colleges and attract some African American students, teachers, to this system. You're going to tell me that you can't get an administrator, a black administrator, from any of these districts around here that's qualified to come in here? If you wanted to, so it's, I know you understand him saying it's the superintendent, but it's called policy. And that is, the school board don't set a policy to do better, they won't do better. And if you want to get the best qualified teacher, then why don't you get the best qualified superintendent? You don't elect the best qualified superintendent. You interview the best qualified superintendent. So they're trying to play both ends of it. And that is, they want to hire the best qualified administrator and teacher, they say. But they're willing to elect a superintendent rather than hire the best qualified. Because if you hire the best qualified superintendent, then he can come in and do what needs to be done because he's qualified.
Excuse me, he's not one of the good old boys then.
But the point is that he's qualified because he's been someplace else, he's run other school districts before, and you bring in somebody in here that knows what they're doing. But if you just stay within the cocoon, excuse me, please don't take that wrong. But if you stay within your environment, you're not ever going to get anything better. But the key is to realize what has happened. All the qualified teachers now just about retired. They've been in the school system 30, 40 years. And they are not replacing them because they can't find a qualified African American minority to teach in Wakulla County. And you got 2 universities right there.
Gotcha. You bring up a lot of stuff. Did you
Everything is based on community. I'm an outsider. I didn't grow up in this community, but everything is based on community. Somebody should have said something even earlier, before all of this transition have taken place. Until, and not just say, I can talk, but be bold about it and really give more emphasis so that people can understand. When you talk about academics, a lot of the students can perform, however, just because, and it's called ESE, Exceptional Student Education. And because my mom was one, then I signed the paper to be one, or the next person signed. It's more like a generation instead of being exposed to something new and say you don't have to go that environment. So it's a lot of things that we're talking about. We need to communicate among ourselves to educate people about what are they signing with their children to. Of course, that will drop down academics because you have different classes for that, which bring on test scores as well. So everything is based on a community until the community stays strong and educate others. Then we can see a change in any form of the development that is going on.
My name is Robert South. I'm the pastor of the service. And when we talk about qualified, we want, every parent wants the most qualified teacher and administrator over their kids. And we're not, I know for a fact we're not getting. Well, we have qualified people have applied for these jobs. But the thing is that, like my uncle said, and has been said before, is that it's set up. It's set up to where they're not picking the qualified people. They're telling us that they got the most qualified people, but they're not. I had my kids out of the school system, but when my kids was in the school system, what I found was, I was very much involved in my school, in my kids' education. And the thing is, I had to. I had to because I wanted them to be the best. And in doing that, I've seen a lot of things that they should have had that wasn't offered to them. So I had to go another route to make sure that they get it and be prepared when they go to the next level. And the thing is, that information wouldn't have got to me if I wasn't involved. And so, therefore, you know, you can, you know, they stack it.
But I don't think that necessarily is a racial thing, though. I think, because if I don't stay on it, and Ms. Wright knows, I'm that parent. If I don't stay on it, mine will get lost. I don't get that either. Just want to clarify.
Right, and I understand that, but I, you know, from my experience, like I said, when my kid was, my oldest son was getting ready to go to college, and I started early, and when the college was telling me that the guidance counselor should have been up on top of this, and they wasn't up on top of that, that's a whole different ballgame.
I'm a grandmother, and I'm an involved grandmother. I was a parent, I was an involved parent. So parents and grandparents and whomever have to be involved. But I think what concerns me most is that when I go into the school system, I don't see minority teachers.
Right.
And I'm very concerned about that. Not only is it hurting our students, it's hurting the other students also.
Amen.
Because they need to be able to live in a world that's going to relate to everybody. So I'm concerned about that. And I'm very concerned about there are no black guidance counselors. If my child is worried about keeping bread or he's hungry on the table, you know, I can't tell that to everybody. I can't identify with that to everybody. So I need to know that there is someone there that I can identify with, that's going to have my concerns, who've been, you know, down some of the roads that I've been down. So, you know, those kind of things concern me. I think we need to have representation in the classroom. We really, really, really do. And we were at a meeting yesterday, reunion, Shayville reunion. We were talking about the teachers, how good they were back in the day. We won't have that conversation too much longer because our black teachers they are really getting to be extinct. When they retire, we're not being replaced. We have 3 teachers that retired this year. They are not going to be replaced. They're not going to be replaced. And that concerns me. I'm very much concerned about it.
Some people have been sending questions our way, and these questions fall directly in line with what you all are talking about. One of the questions was, if we have over 70 years of combined school board elected service by the current 5 school board members, why in the heck is this conversation just happening now? Cook and Evans have been there 2 decades. Gray has been there 16 years. Thomas has been there 14 years. Those 4 alone have 70 years. What have they done to help diversity? Why are you saying nothing? Yes.
Thank you. My name is Hugh Taylor. I'm a member of the Wakulla County Christian Coalition. I heard a couple of things that really struck me. Number one, the Civil Rights Act of 1964 was 10 years after Brown versus the Board of Education. That's 60 years? In 60 years. What kind of community? I heard the word community. What have we done? Because in Brown v. Board, Supreme Court said separate is inherently unequal. White children, all the children lose so much by this separation. And it's de facto, it's the custom, but that's 60 years. And that's all really I have to say. We have to get on another footing. I don't know how in the world to do that, but we really have to start talking community, getting involved together, and let's get something done for all the children.
The only comment that I wanted to make is, in answer to your question, we need to stop voting for people who are not doing anything. And when I say doing anything, if you're talking about what we can measure after 40 years, 50 years, ask the question when you go to the polls. If it's a name you recognize, that's scary to start with. just ask the question, what has this person done to help me, my children, my grandchildren, and my great-grandchildren be able to live in a community where differences are appreciated? And if you truthfully cannot answer that you feel good with what the people are doing, stop voting for them. I think that's pretty simple.
If it says re-elect,
Okay. And I'll say something else in a minute, but that's what I wanted to say on that point. And if we start in 2014, it's still going to take a long time to see a certain type change, I think, take place in Wakulla County. But regardless of what race the person is that's running for office, if we can start getting people in office that, like George said, that you can go to them and sit down and look them in the face, tell them your concern, and then they try to do something about it. If we can just start doing that, that would be helpful.
My name is Jackie Green, and about 7 years ago, we have, gone and sat down and talked with the superintendent at that time, which was David Miller. Just the same thing over and over. What I think we need to do, embarrass the heck out of these people. We put pen to paper, go to whatever State Department and make our concerns be known based on documentation, based on fact, and embarrass the heck out of the school system down here. Because right now they're not embarrassed. They're just they're meeting, they're grinding, they're just putting their little thoughts out there. But it'll boil over, it'll calm down, and that's what it did. It kind of faded away, and here we are again. So my thing is, if we're not ready to put pen to paper and get some lawyers or get NAACP involved and some of these other people involved, agencies, nothing is going to change. Nothing is going to change because people really don't know. And Wakulla County is changing. People are moving into the county, which is great, but they don't know. So we just really got to get it out there.
Somebody brought up the question of are we better off in 2014 than we were in 1969 or so? 64. Thank you. Do you feel we're better off? Just curious. Yes, ma'am, please.
Hi. Thank you. Hi, everybody. My name is Melanie Williams, and I recently moved back to Louisville. Two things I want to say right quick, because boss is going to sit me down in a minute. A few years ago, we were in a meeting with David Miller, and David Miller sat there and told us that they did not have any qualified people to put in the school system. I'm sitting at his desk, and my eyes cast up. He got a degree from FAMU. Is you crazy? I am leaving. I got so mad I had to leave. You telling me that you an alumni of a black university, historically black, and you can't find anybody to put in the system down here? I walked out of the meeting. And I don't think anybody but Boston probably knew why I walked out, because I was ready to clock. And that's not nice. The second thing is, I moved back to Louisville 5 years ago. The superintendent was fired. Had been there 15 years. Fired him. Did we get somebody from Louisville? No. We went to North Carolina and got the best. So what are you saying, Melanie? Until you get out of Wakulla County and stop doing a good old boy act and everybody appointing everybody, you're going to have the same thing 20 years from now. You've got to get out of here and get the best. Who said these people in Wakulla County were the best? I ain't here.
Well, I think one of the words I heard was community, and that is a lot of what this is about. It's got to be one community. My kids went to Wakulla High School. They did well, and they had Black American friends who graduated and have done very well. And I believe that that generation, my children's generation, and their friends are looking to see change, and they want it today, not 20 years down the road.
Their friends can't come back here to work.
Well, I think that they would like to see that happen, whether it can happen or
They can't come back here to work.
This is what's got to happen, is that we've got to know each other so well that when there's an opening, we can go to each other and say, let's find a way to get this young person a job. So it's not just a group that's been here forever and ever and ever. I mean, it's got to, you know, the community has to be opened up and broader. You know what I'm saying? It can't just be a select group. It's been I grew up in a military family. I lived in a lot of different kind of diverse situations. It's been my observation that until somebody becomes aware that there's a problem, they don't think there's a problem. If it's not affecting them, it's not a problem. We've got to make it so that they are more, their hearts are more impacted by the fact that this is what we need, not just for Black American and their children. Every single child needs to be able to look and see somebody that looks like them. It's very important. And the other thing I'm going to say is, whether or not the school board members can hire and fire, they have two constitutional responsibilities. The first one is to approve budgets, and the second one is to approve policies.
Policy.
That's right.
And it's the policies that we have to start addressing. And you need to elect people who are going to go in there and say, I want a policy that is directed specifically towards hiring people who represent the entire community, and not just as a Black person representing a Black child, but as a Black person in authority or in a classroom who represents every child in the school system. So every child, no matter what their color or where they came from, what their religion, can look and say, oh, I like Mr. Jones or Mr. Williams. Look at that. It won't be like a shock or an anomaly. It'll be just a normal, everyday occurrence. So that every single child is just used to seeing people doing their jobs and doing them well. And it isn't enough for us to sit in here and talk about it. We've got to get out there, and we've got to talk to our neighbors and talk to our friends and say, look, it's time this changed. And I remember when Mr. Soapy told people to get up and walk out, and I wrote a letter to the editor, and I got in trouble. And but not that I minded that at all. But the point being is, it was an atrocity that the superintendent of schools would say to a concerned parent, if you're not happy, take your kid out of here. They're taxpayers. They're citizens. This is their school system. You do not invite them to leave if they're not being treated fairly.
I would like to interject something here. But this is not just Stokely. It's
Right.
for every one of them.
I'm not arguing with that. I'm not arguing with that. And I also want you to know that as a white parent, I had to go and have issues with different teachers and with different superintendents, and had feelings that I was not being listened to either. So don't think it's just
You have the right last name.
Whatever it was. I mean, I got a big mouth. They're used to me coming in and telling what I think all the time. But
I also want to piggyback on that. I think our kids do see things differently.
yes,
I think our kids are cohesive. I think that it's the adults that are not cohesive.
I think there are a lot of frightened adults who don't know how to
I think the
change
kids
it
are
too.
cohesive, and I don't think they agree with this. I don't think they would in turn want to be a part of it.
That's correct.
And unfortunately, they don't have any other better role models to teach the cohesion. So they have developed it on their own. And that alone is impressive. So when you ask if we have made changes since 2000 or since 1964, I think we have. I mean, I do. To me, inside our kids, but it has not filtered back up where it needs to filter.
But I think what Ms. Brock was saying, that it has to be awareness, I think there is awareness, but it's being ignored. I'm sorry. If this gentleman is saying that they went to the first man and then the Miller and now the Pierce, and they're still getting the same attitude back, then the awareness is there, but they're not, the awareness at top is not changing.
Yes.
I
can tell you right now what it is they think there's a select group of people who are upset, but that most of the people in Wakulla County are perfectly fine with it the way it is. And until they realize it's the majority of people, black, white, and whatever, who want to see things change, they're not going to be willing to change.
Okay, all right, I got to stand up over here. You talking about you got a big mouth?
I got a big mouth, yeah.
I've been beat completely took part here in Wakulla County. Blurred, put in a psycho ward saying I was crazy, simply because of standing up for my rights and other people's rights. Can anybody tell me that the system is so wired that when spirits get ready to get out, you can guarantee you got somebody who's going to pull in there. And this system has been going on for so long. I remember all this stuff. I'm very pleasant today.
Yes, you are.
I'm very pleasant. Absolutely kind. Absolutely stood up. But the federal court wrote my own brief and had it off the page. And yet still they would appeal it and do it. This is
Good evening. My name is Patrick Wright. I'm a resident of Wakulla County. My wife and I, sitting over there, we moved here in 2005, and we've been here ever since. I work in Leon County schools. I'm an assistant principal at Swift Creek Middle School. And I'm hearing a couple of issues this evening. One of them is about the students. And someone said about change. And I think one of the reasons, this is my thought, about why things have not changed is because Wakulla County Schools are seen as A schools. But that is a name that is not true to what it says as an A district. Yes, the kids perform, or the schools perform well generally. But when you look into the numbers, you can even look on the DOE website, where it talks about you have to have a certain number of kids at each school in order for them to be accounted as part of that school's grade. And so, by the way the district is set up and the way people are zoned in the county, there is no school in Wakulla County that has enough African American students such that they detract from the school's grade, their performance. And I'm not saying that African American students are performing any less than the white students or other students in the school, but it is something that is not being considered when you look at the school grades in the district. The people in the district know that. They know how to look at the numbers, and they know how to do things so that it does not have an impact on school grades. And so the school, when the school district and people in the district see that our schools are A schools, there is no reason to do anything. There is no reason to change anything. There's no reason to change how we do anything. There's no reason to hire an African American teacher. There's no reason to increase the population of African American staff or other staff in the schools if things are going well. And that's what they look at. If things are going great, let's leave it as it is. The second thing I'm hearing is about people actually being hired here in the district. And so I'm glad the gentleman stood up and was talking about Stokely and Miller before him. I'm an actual real-life example of that. I am an administrator in Leon County who has applied in this district as an administrator 3 times. I've been a school administrator in Leon County since 2007, at a high school and at a middle school. Most recently, I applied for River Springs last year. I was told by the current superintendent that they were impressed by my interview. I didn't get the job. I was told early this year that he was impressed by my interview, but I wasn't told by him. I was told by several surrogates who called me, talked to me, talked to my wife, talked to somebody who knew me to get the message to me that I needed to apply for Wakulla Middle School this year. The message did not come from those people. It came from Mr. Pierce. I don't know what the reason. I didn't get that job either. But I went through the interview process. I got a call back in the interview process. I was told when I got called back that I did an excellent job in the interview process. I was told in that interview process that I did so well that they were not looking at me any longer for the Wakulla Middle School job, but for Miss Beth O'Donnell's job. I can call names in this room because we all are community. And those of you sitting in this room, you all know who Beth O'Donnell is. And so I was asked to consider that for some time. And I considered that for some time. There were offers that they would get a job back in the district for my wife. They would make it happen if I would take that job. And I considered that job, and I decided against taking that job. I decided against taking that job because that's not what I applied for. I applied for a principal position at a school. And so it tells me something, should tell this community something, that there is no preparation, there is no readiness at this time for someone to see an African-American principal at any school in Wakulla County. And this is what, and I wrote an email to the superintendent. And anybody who wants it, I'll give it to you so you can read it too. But in that email, I told him that how is it that you're going to look at me for a position that is higher than that one at Wakulla Middle School, for me to be someone that they would have to go to, that they would have a go-to person for them in relation to what they're doing in their jobs at their schools. How would you hire me for that position? I will be seen, if I'm going to be seen by everybody else in the public. They will ask, why did you hire that person for that position? If that person, when they applied for the same job that the guy who's got the job has, and he wasn't good enough to get the Wakulla Middle School position, how is he good enough to be in that position? That's the question I asked the superintendent. I didn't get an answer for that. I didn't expect an answer for that. But I gave that to him, and I also told him in the email that he missed an opportunity. I'm not saying I'm the greatest thing since sliced bread. I wouldn't tell anybody that. But I would tell anybody who asks me that I am qualified, overqualified for that position. The person in that position right now has never been an assistant principal. The person in that position now, I don't know right now if he has a certification yet to be a principal. I don't not only have my ed leadership certification, I have my principal certification. And so, you know, most jobs that we go to, if we go and apply for a job, we are not going to get a call for an interview unless we have our credentials in order. But see, in this district, and that's why I said I appreciate what the gentleman over here said, they changed the rules in order for it to fit the situation that they had. So if they had a teacher, let's say if this were a teacher right here in a school right now who's qualified, has her ed leadership certification, right now we can overlook her for an assistant principal position because the rule has been changed where I can go get me somebody else because we technically changed it to a dean position. So now anybody out here who does not have their certification in ed leadership, hasn't started on their certification in ed leadership, can apply for that dean position. She's sitting here ready with certification in hand and may not get a call for an interview for that position because they changed the rules of the game. Everybody in the county may not know that they changed the rules to the game, but they did. The guy who's at Wakulla Middle right now was a dean at Crawfordville Elementary School.
6 months.
Bob
Meyer.
His dad was a
the
teacher.
principal of Wakulla Middle School.
And a principal. His dad was a teacher and principal.
I've been teaching for 18 years, and she applied for the position. She couldn't get it because he got it.
And, you know, there was some discussion about it, and when the superintendent called me, he said, well, we decided to go with someone who was more familiar with the school. I worked in, I'm just telling you, and I told him on the phone, I said, you know what, you're the superintendent, ultimately it is your decision of who you put at that school. And then I was told at that point, well, we would really like for you to apply for an assistant principal position.
With lower pay.
I didn't answer that. I didn't answer that. But this is the situation that we're in. So when he said that they came up and said that there were no qualified applicants, that's what I heard when I moved here in 2005. When I got my certification, all my stuff, let me wind the clock back a little bit. Let's go back to 2006. 2006, I was finishing up my Ed Leadership certification. I already had my master's, but I was working on some courses to finish the Ed Leadership certification. I applied for an assistant principal position that was open in this district. I was promptly told that you had to have your certification in order to apply for the job. I said, thank you very much. I appreciate the information. How the times have changed from that time. Remember I told you, they changed the rules. You can apply for anything now, even principal of a school, without that certification. They can't deny that those changes have been made. The Human Resources Director, the current superintendent, the former superintendent, all of them know that these changes have been made. The people in the district, in the community, they may not know. But it is a fact that the rules have been changed. And it can't be but one reason to change the rules. Or let me throw out two. It could be possible we don't want an African American leader. The second answer could be that we want someone that's in this district. But see, there's some deniability in that part, because you've got people, like I said, if this were an example, who has the Ed Leadership certification, that means that I just don't like you. And I don't want you in a position of leadership in one of these schools. But see, when we sit around and we allow that to happen, and this didn't just happen in 2014, it didn't just happen in 2006 or 2007 when I started applying, and I committed myself to applying for jobs here. When I was told that there were no African American qualified candidates, I said, I will apply anytime a position comes open.
Thank you.
Anytime it comes open. So that when they turn around and they tell the community again, we don't have any qualified applicants, you all can turn around to them and say, you're a liar. Because I know a man named Patrick Wright who's applied or attempted to apply at least 3 times for administrative jobs in your district. Now, they said they wanted someone familiar with Wakulla Middle School. In Leon County, we could be moved in a year to a different school. I spent 6 years at Rickards High School. Last year, I was moved to Swift Creek Middle School. I did not know a teacher there. I did not know the principal there. But I was expected at any time to move from one school to the next and do my job. All the stuff that we're hearing about, well, we want them to be familiar with the school, we want them to do this, we want them to do that, that's all. Exactly. Your choice of word is put in that form. And as long as we receive that, they're going to keep giving that to us.
I have a question. Yes, for you, because
yes.
you know a lot about this. I am aware that policy should shape hiring. How can they just, anytime it suits their purpose, change that policy without having to go through some kind of...
But it did. That had to go through the school board. But the school board said, amen and yes, sir.
You didn't even elect the 3 of us.
The school board said, that's fine. This is what probably happened. They probably said, you know what, as we look at, let's say these are all the teachers in the district right here. Everybody, all the educators. And as we look at out of all the educators in our district, let's see who we have with Ed Leadership certification. Well, we've got this young lady with Ed Leadership certification, we've got this gentleman with Ed Leadership certification, and we've got this gentleman over here with Ed Leadership certification. We got these 3. Is that going to fill the bill for us over the next 10 years? And so they decided, well, we don't want him anyway. We don't want her either. We don't like her. She'll never get an administrative job in this district as long as I'm the one on the board or serving as superintendent. So now what can we do? Because according to the state, you can't put someone in an assistant principal position who does not have the credentials to be an assistant principal. Unless there's a situation in that district where you don't have anyone with the certification. And then superintendents are allowed the latitude to select someone with the consideration that they are working toward getting that certification. That's how that works. That's a lie when you've got people sitting around with the certification. And you choose not to pick them. You choose not to interview them. You choose not to because they may not be in your clique. They may not, I heard someone else say, they may not be in the right family. They may not be the right shade of gray that we want there. You know, whatever the situation is, they are making decisions to fit what they want the district to look like. Not what the district looks like, what they perceive, what they want the district to look like. That's how they're making those decisions. They aren't considering who's in the district. They aren't considering the needs of the students, the needs of the parents in the district. They are doing what they feel is best. And they feel like that's what I was elected to do what I feel is best. I've got word back that people say, oh, we've got a great principal over at Wakulla Middle, and singing the praises of the young man. I don't know him. I've never spoken to this young man. Never have. But I can't process, and I told the superintendent in my letter, that if I were put in the position that he was asking me to go to, Beth O'Donnell's position, I told him that if I were in that position and the same decision were made, I could not support it. I could not support that decision. And as an employee in that position, you are to support what your superintendent has done. And I said, if I can't support that decision, how many more will I not be able to support? I can't support something when you overlook people who are qualified. When they did the assistant principal selection for those same schools, Crawfordville Elementary and for Wakulla Middle, there was an opportunity to select an African American for that. There was at least one that got into the final 3. He didn't get selected either. But there was an opportunity to do it. There is an African American assistant principal in this district right now who has the certification, has the qualification, and the same way they moved Wakulla Middle's principal over to the high school, they could have moved him to the middle school. That choice wasn't made. That's not who they wanted. So it's not a fact about not having the candidates. We've dispelled that. It's not about the person not being able to articulate themselves to people. I'm calling my own name. I've disproved that. It's not about any of those things. It is about what they choose and who they choose to be in the leadership positions in this district. And as long as we sit around and don't say a word, not show up to school board meetings, not to press them on issues, it will continue to happen.
We had talked about how you're not in the right family. At some point, people have got to start seeing all of us as part of their family. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? When they start looking around to fill empty positions, they have to look at you and say, all right, son, I want you to come be in my school because you're a product of this system, and I want to give you that opportunity because I care about you. They have got to be able to see every single person in this county as part of their family, maybe a very extended family, but it has to come down to that. As long as you don't exist to people, then they're not going to look at you to fill these positions. You understand what I'm trying to say? Does it make sense? You don't think I'm right?
It go way back. It was a guy born and raised in the county, they had it over. He was a principal at middle school. And he was up. And this has been going on a long time. He was up for the next principal job. So what they did was, they changed, I call it change the rules in the middle of the game. And he was promised. The superintendent at that time said he was going to be the next African American principal in Wakulla County. What they did, they changed and gave him a job at the
Beth O'Donnell's type job.
Director of IT.
Now, on that same note, I have had, they said that, Miller said he wanted to hire teachers that, deal with teachers that was in the county, that that went through the school system and, you know, again, some, that wasn't true either. Because I got, you know, classmates, the African-American classmates that went to, got the degree, and they came back and they was told that you don't have enough experience. But they just got all their credentials. Where do you get the experience from? Now, that's what they told me. So how do you get that experience? So they changed the rules in the middle of the game. And what's happening is they get behind this, and I go for a fight. That guy right there, Pierce came to me and said, hey, you know Patrick Ray. I said, yeah, I know. He said, you know, tell me $5 job. That's true. I was sure that he was going to get the job because we hadn't talked about it before he even ran. But somehow, I don't know, the school board, I don't know who did it, and we talked about it. I said, who do the hiring? The school board, you got Becky Cook, all of them, they said, no, you just named how long they've been in office. So they picked this pool, and you talk about the most qualified. See, people don't know how to go to the Department of Education and pull up the credentials of these teachers that's supposed to be qualified.
How many of you knew you could do that? You could go to the Department of Education website and pull up the credentials of all the teachers. How many of you actually, who didn't know that?
You go to www. And then you put in Wakulla County, and then you put, you don't even have to know the teacher's first name, just put in their initial and their last name, and it will automatically.
And the county.
And that's the same way that schools check teacher certifications when they apply for jobs.
That's good to know. So when they tell so when they tell us they got the most qualified people, they don't have the most qualified people. This right here been going on a long time.
Somebody else sent this message in, talking about the message. What message was sent to the minority community when the teachers, principals, and Superintendent Miller wore Pierce campaign shirts in 2012 superintendent campaign? Seriously, let's think hard about that one. You have two candidates running, two different races represented, yet the leaders / mentors of our school system sent a powerful message, even if it was unintentional.
Why not intentional? It was intentional.
You feel it was intentional?
Oh, yeah.
Say that again?
He handpicked Pierce. He went around to all of the school employees and told them to vote for Pierce. Okay? He put signs in all of the school employees' yards. He did that. Miller did that. Okay? Hey, listen, I don't want to talk a long time. All of us in here now seem to have the very same concerns. Are we willing to change the faces of the school? Are we willing?
All right.
Okay? I don't want to stand by myself.
Come
but
on.
I'm tired of it. Because they lie and lie and lie. Okay? So I want everybody that's in here to take a part and let's change this. We can change the candidates now. Those that have been there have done nothing but rubber stamp the superintendent. We're going to change them. Okay? We're going to change them. If you all don't do your job, we'll change you all next time.
Question about do we think our kids are treated fairly? I want to say, because I'm really involved in my kids' lives, and my son, he was kicked in his back at Carpenter Elementary School, and he didn't hit the little girl back. He did call her a butt sniffer, which he shouldn't. He got a referral, had to write 25 sentences, well, that's what they told him to do. But I guess they didn't think his parents were going to do anything about it. So I went out there, me and my husband, very professional, but we got with it. And they took the referral away, and they took those sentences away, so the kids are not treated fairly. And when Mr. Nelson was talking about the pyramid, you know, some notes here, it goes back to, again, my friend that has been teaching for 18 years. She was looked over as an assistant principal job. It was given to Rick Meyer, which his dad was a principal. Falk at River Springs, Pickett River Springs, her parents were into school. Hernandez, his parents were into the school system. You got Pat Jones, her daughter is now the assistant principal over at Harborville School. Who else? You got Karen Wells, her husband, secretly got kicked out of Wakulla Middle School. Nobody knows about that. And now he's the head of the maintenance department at the bus yard.
Not yet, but he's
Man, he got it. They say it's that's all I need to say.
You said it, baby. I think you said a lot.
One more thing I want to say.
Okay, I'm going to let you, and then this gentleman wants to speak. Thank you guys for coming out.
We've had several people, and I have their names, who applied for administrative positions here, okay? They were black, and they were turned down. They had the certification. They were turned down. And then they hired some whites in their places who didn't have the certification. I have the names. Okay, they left and went to Leon County. When they went across the line, they got hired as administrators. They're still working up there now. Doctors, master's degrees. But he said he can't find no people who are qualified. What you call that? A lie. And let's face it, we can say it any kind of way we want to say it. It's racism. Any kind of name you want to put on it. Can you find any other names to call racism? No. Can you say it in a nicer way? No. All right.
My name is Taylor Phillips, and I have a question, kind of come at the same problem in a kind of a little bit of different way, but I'll come back around to it the same way in the end, really. Grew up career in teaching and coaching, and there was more than one occasion when I was told, yeah, you're qualified, yeah, but if I hire you, you don't help me fulfill my diversity quota, so I'm going to go hire old Mr. So-and-so, who turned out to be another white guy just like me. And so that's happened several times in several places, not in Wakulla County. So not that it's any big news to anybody, that this is not unique to this area. But and so over my lifetime, I went on to have a good career in the church, treated me a little better. But so I've had that curiosity in the back of my mind. It's a tough problem to solve, because if there are policies, some human being has to follow the policy. And so who is actually going to do that? And I've seen in our history of evolution, some schools, Avondale High School in DeKalb County, Georgia, has created, and evidently there was a policy to allow diversity to occur at each level. Other schools, other places, not so much. So how exactly to make that happen? And evidently, it's not going to be easy. It's going to take some version of what Mr. Wright was saying earlier about the real specifics, the real meat, and then being able to say and get that out a lot. And evidently, in our society, we can do that when we want to, and we don't do it so well, and we don't feel like it. And at the same time, watching it happen, NCAA basketball, Nolan Richardson, I believe is his name, African-American coach, national championships, you hire a coach, and he wins, it can be done. So evidently, part of it has to do with being good old basic behavioral objectives, paying attention to what exactly you want to see accomplished, and studying all that, and then being able to say, okay, if this position, if there wasn't somebody qualified for this position, what about this one and this one, and continuing to do that with the publicity, which is a lot of work, right? But it can be done. It's just not easy. But it does happen somewhere. It happens in some places. It happens in California, New York. It happens. So how they are doing it, maybe we can start doing it the way they do somehow.
It sounds like you have to have some people that are actually willing
to do the hard work of showing all that, like you said, looking it all up and all that, and then putting it out in the newspaper and so forth.
They have to be willing to do that. I'm sorry. They have to be willing to do that. And when I say they, I'm talking about the school board and the superintendent. They have to be willing to do that. The young lady right here said when they reached out to find another superintendent, they did a search to find the best person for their school. They know that there are several African-American administrators in Leon County. They could make an offer to any one of them, or could have. They've got people down here that know probably all of them up there. All of us up there. They could have had a pool of just that down here, if that's what you wanted. If they said, you know what, the next hire we're going to make is one of an African American, it could have been done if that was a priority. Every other district does the same thing. They'll say that even in Leon County, they'll look at each school and they'll say, no, we need representation from, if it's Griffin Middle School, we need representation from the white race to be here at this school. And so when we get ready to fill this position, we're not looking for an African American. We're looking for someone white. And people know that. And people understand that when they make those selections. And the same thing would happen here in Wakulla County. No one would fight that if they knew that you brought in someone who was highly qualified for that position. You don't have to grow up here in order to know how to be with kids, educate kids, and to nurture kids. You don't have to be from Wakulla County to know those things. You just have to have the content knowledge here and have a heart for kids in order to do that job. That's all that's required. They will tell you, we want someone homegrown. But if you don't have someone homegrown, if there's no one here who can step into the position, then you go out and you find someone who's going to fit that position. It's all about what you want to do. It's not like they don't have choices. It is a wide open choice. They can make the choice.
I have one more comment about trying to find the teachers. A few months ago, I went to the superintendent, my husband and I, and we're just concerned citizens. So we walked in and he said, hey, Mrs. Smith, what can I do for you? I think that's what he said. What can I do for you? And he said, Mr. Pierce, what can I do for you? So anyway, he said that, I know we need some black teachers, and he went on and on, but that wasn't why we were there. Wow. So in the course of the conversation, he said, he said, well, maybe I could help him find some funds to write a grant to recruit black teachers. He said, maybe you can help us find some funds to write a grant to recruit black teachers. That's just showing you people don't take us seriously at all. And so I just thought for about 3 seconds. I said, well, what do you have on your long-range goals? What are your goals?
Exactly.
And so I said, what recruiting efforts are you making? And I just happened to know there was a job fair going on, an educational job fair was going on at FAMU that following week. So I said, who have you got from the district going to the job fair? And so he didn't answer. I said, well, I'm not working. I'll volunteer to go. And so, no, I'm just telling you, when people teach us, I said, well, I'll volunteer. I'll go. I have a master's in HR. I know how to do recruiting. And so anyway, he said, well, one thing you understand, if you go, you're not representing Wakulla. I say, I'm going as a concerned citizen. And I wasn't trying to be cocky, but I said, I think I can just walk around. Yeah. And if you got hundreds of applicants who are teachers and you got HR people from all over Florida, I believe I can walk up to enough people and say, are you interested in working in Wakulla County? But that is, I just wanted to throw that out there to just let you know the types of answers that we're getting. I mean, the only thing that I can say is, when we go to the polls, we need to just vote out everyone that we recognize their names.
You need a list?
And that's the only thing I can think of, because
You're not in yet.
that insulted me so much that I won't take that route anymore. There are other avenues. So I called the Department of Education, and and I sort of gave them my scenario. And they told me, they said, we know nothing, we absolutely know nothing about Wakulla County trying to recruit black teachers. Because they said they have avenues through the Department of Education that can help, and I talked to the people, they were so nice, and they said, well, all they have to do is get in a vehicle and ride up here. It's not like they're driving from Miami. Right. So we got people playing games. Yeah. And I refuse to go back and be insulted like I was about go find some money and we'll write a grant.
My name is Eleanor Elkner, and for some years, many years ago, I was director of planning and evaluation for the school board here. When we were really small, like 2,000 students. And I think we had some impact at those days in terms of looking at academics and so on. But I'm white-skinned, in case you hadn't noticed. And I think if we are going to say we want diversity in our schools, we want our children to learn to live in a diverse society, it needs to be a diverse group of us who goes and says, no more games. You're trying to do it to appease some white people, but you've got white people in this group and many more in this county who are saying it's time to give it the 21st.
Amen.
All right.
My name is Shelley Clinton, and I've lived only in Florida about 7 years, and in this county for that length of time. And two of the things that I was most surprised about when I moved here was that we didn't hire our superintendent or our sheriff. I've been affiliated with school boards in the past that traveled the nation for a year interviewing people to get the very best match for the needs as identified from Kansas. And it was the same when we replaced sheriffs. I just cannot believe that those people are elected officials because I feel like it just perpetuates the whole cycle of the good boy and the good boy member. So maybe that is a movement that this group should embrace.
I wanted to say almost the same thing. I'm a school administrator from California. I'm retired. And I do think there is a gentleman over here mentioned a structural problem in that I don't understand. I was shocked and do not understand how the school board exercised control over the superintendent. That in every district I ever worked in, the school board was elected by the people and were responsive to the people. They hired the superintendent. So if there's a significant portion of the community which is not getting their needs met, and the school board sets policy with the superintendent, if you can't do that, or if he fails at doing it, then he's fired. He works completely at the board's wishes, and they go out and they look for someone who has experience solving that problem, which is so then the people have an opportunity to have representation on the board. You've got one shot at the superintendent, and if he's got to come from in this county, it's extremely limiting. So I think that would be the first place I'd work, is trying to figure out how that's set up. Is it in the county charter? Who set that up? And change it.
That's a North Florida system. South of here, they hire superintendents. Yeah, they can. But I'm saying on the north, there's something that they're going on.
It just seems to me that somehow this comfort zone that they're in, it just needs to be broken up.
It's called the U.S. Justice Department.
To just let you know how comfortable they are in their positions. When you have a candidate who's running for a position, and you're at a forum and you use the term, we want the best, are we not considered a part of the best? You know, it just behooves me that you can get up and say that. And it's just nothing that we say or do. The coalition has been working on this for years. And it seems like we cannot get our toe in the door. We've given the runaround. We've been put off. Everything that they can do not to do any of the things that we're asking. So, here it again. When we go to the polls, let's get them out. They need to be out. They're not going to make a difference. We need it for our children. We really do.
All of our children.
All of our children. I'm just not saying African American. All of our children. Like I said, it's a diverse society, and we need it.
Because I was going to lead into the academic part of it about bridging the gap and understanding how children are developing in the development, because if they see it on the outside, then the adults are doing it. And then here, the principal is a friend of the teacher, and you see that this teacher is not treating children fairly, it'll be swept under the rug. And that's something that it's always been that way. Is what when I first came to the county, because I worked first when I came here, I worked in Leon, and then my husband said, well, there is one down the street. But from Leon perspective, they were saying, oh, they're all racist out there. And so I told that to my mom. She said, oh my gosh, my baby's going to be hanging on a tree. And I said, because they know how bold I am. Apparently, they didn't realize that I was really, really bold. But when I came here and I was hired, I had people come to me and say, well, how did you get this position? And I questioned, I asked, maybe one asked, but people became afraid to speak to me because of the aggressive, how aggressive I was, but I was aggressive in the classroom. I treated everybody fairly. But the thing about it, going down to the children, because there's not diversity in these classrooms, in the administration level, and because we want to hire people homegrown, you're still seeing that cycle continue. And that's where our children are developing. I will give you a suspension. And I know one student came to me and he said, Ms. Red, I cursed her out. And he was a white student. I said, they're my children. I love them all. And I said, you are wrong. But on the flip side, there was a black little girl came to me and she had concerns. And I said, wait a minute, that's the same situation. You got 3 days out of suspension, but I knew his mama, so I just told him to just give a little detention. I saw that. Well, they probably didn't realize who I was, and so I went in and said, there is a problem. And I was calling, do you think I'm a racist? No, I'm talking about fairness to children. They are both my children. But you're not going to treat one differently than the other.
That's right.
So you need to get it corrected. Where they lifted, the suspension off, and you say, well, the students felt comfortable coming. I didn't care. It didn't matter what color you were. If you were treated unfairly, and that's what students are seeing. If they know it doesn't matter what color you are, but if they know that they're being treated fairly, they can be disruptive, everything, and they know that I was wrong, I got what I deserved. But don't say you were wrong, but yet over here, they need to be out. It's they see it. And that's what I'm going back down to the academic portion of it. It is being shown in the classroom setting. You have to motivate children, not a certain kind, not of a certain family name, or whatever. I know there was one family name that I didn't even realize, because I'm an outsider. I didn't realize that was a family you didn't play with. Well, they didn't realize who was right. Because right don't tell you what is right. Because you can be right out my classroom door. Because I'm not tolerant. I'm not afraid of your name. You should be afraid of my name. So even in that part of the whole part, our children, the academic motivation, the achievement gap, the understanding how to teach every child is very important. That's why it's so important to understand and interview and be biased to this old boy system. This is dealing with, these are treating children. And even, I distinctly remember when they had the one day where everybody, at the beginning of the school year, where all the teachers get together. And remember, I'm an outsider. And then they said, everybody stand up to Pierce School. I forgot the name of the school. And they were petite, white, blonde, blue-haired women.
No.
And I could not believe it. I mean, they were models. And I couldn't, and I'm like, wait a minute, what? And they had an older black woman. She stood up with them. And it just did, I had issues when I saw that. Because there's a problem. When I found that my students, black and white, was talking in my classroom for what your lunchtime, they were African Americans right here, and everybody, no, you're not going to talk in this classroom. You're going to talk during lunchtime. And how I know you're going to talk? Because I'm going to be in there with you. And next thing you know, they started mingling. We can't talk this right there. Well, that's how it is. Because I want you to understand, just because you're in a different setting, you treat people the same. I could care less. I had a parent that, with our first week in there, said we didn't want this black lady teaching my child English. I said, well, okay, I dealt with the upper class group. I dealt with all kinds. But you don't tell me what to do in my classroom. I even had to educate her in the meeting. So there are certain things that several people know that I used to have the white students in my classroom do research on African American history. Okay, and I treat them fairly. It did not matter. If the blacks didn't want to do it, you got to pass my class. I don't want to do it, you have to pass my class. So it was a requirement to do it. It wasn't negotiable. It was required to do it if you want to pass my class. So the point is, when we look at we have to educate our children. And in educating our children, they have to feel comfortable to go to people of whom they find equal with. And it doesn't matter black or white, but if you treat them fairly to help them. If you don't know, see me after school. I'll tutor you. And in my observation, I've been teaching, I'm going into my 19th year of teaching. And if somebody think that it was incorrect how I would say, I'm not a politically correct person. My husband is, not me. I've noticed that a lot of teachers, preferably white teachers, will favor far more for a disrespectful, hard-headed white child before, and I say every, I say some, before they do the same for a black child. I don't care if you're disrespectful, white, black, Hispanic, where I taught them all. I'm going to treat you the same. If I go overboard for Billy, I'm going to go overboard for Willie. So it's just the same thing how, but it comes back in homegrown, yes, that's fine. I'm an outsider. I'm a complete outsider. If you want to do that, if you're going to do it fairly. Because what I've seen, I went to school with her. Your child going to get swept under the rug. But, oh yeah, I taught your cousin, I taught your family member, they all were low. So what happens? You're going to be low. And that cycle continues.
Your expectation level.
Okay, and so when hey, I want everybody to read a book, but here I'm going to let you read this little small book. And because parental involvement across the board, white and black, until parents become accountable for their children's education, that's when you'll see a major change. Before you see anything with school boards, until they count every corner and understand why and question that, because the more you ask why, or, well, you're going to have to talk to this person. Okay, I'm going over there and talk to that person. Okay, well, you have to talk to this person. Until you're being an advocate for children, number one. That's when things tend to change, because the children are filtering into the same thing. Because right now, probably someone in middle school have been designed years to come to be superintendent. And in their attitude and their demeanor has them have a superiority, maybe can't read or write as well as the others, but have been groomed to become that. That's when it has time to change, when you're affecting children.